guys, it's blisteringly brisk games here, and it's no secret that I'm known for my speed. Doesn't matter if it's the 100-yard dash, the 100-meter dash, the Daytona 500, I've won it all. But recently, I've run into a little bit of a problem. Ever since I drank from the green liquid in the cauldron, I started aging rapidly. It started with a small wrinkle here and there, but clearly it's gotten quite bad. My bones grew brittle and started to break, my teeth turned a sickly shade of green, and worst of all, I lost 0.1 seconds on my 100-meter dash time. It matters a lot at the top. But kids, if you have to drink from the cauldron, just take a sip or two. That's really all the punishment entails. Maybe you'll get some heartburn or something, but do not submit to its sweet nectar like I did. Let me be the example. But because of this, I'm retiring from any speed-related activities. But luckily for me, I can live out my former glory days in this rapidly declining husk of a body with racing games.
Before these unfortunate circumstances, I hadn't really played a racing game since I was a kid. Despite this, I have fuzzy memories of driving around whatever bargain bin racing game I could get my hands on, while being blissfully unaware of the tragedy that my life would later become. But as soon as I came into contact with games like Super Mario Sunshine and Metroid Prime, the racing genre wasn't something I really bothered with other than Mario Kart. I think I gravitated more towards Mario Kart because it was very easy to pick up, and on top of that, I was a little baby Nintendo bitch. So naturally, being able to race with baby Mario appealed to me more than racing with some cars that I didn't care about. Fast forward to my advanced current condition in the age of video game music being all over YouTube. Look, I won't lie. My whole YouTube recommended is basically just chill nostalgic Nintendo mix number 40. But this ended up being a way for me to find some good music from games that I've never played, and possibly would never play, like Gran Turismo. Man, I've been so obsessed with the music from this game that there are 3-hour compilations of it that I know by heart. I can anticipate which song comes next in the mix because I've heard them so much. But unfortunately, as much as I respect Gran Turismo, and also enjoy watching other people play it, these games just are not my thing. Look, if I'm struggling this bad to get my B license, something is fucked up. I can barely even stop in the right place or turn the car how I want. And it would take a substantial effort for the game to feel good, and I just don't have the interest or motivation to do it. This is where I came to the conclusion that I needed something a little bit more arcadey to dip my toes into the racing genre. And let me tell you, Ridge Racer Type 4 ended up being the perfect one. I ordered my copy off of just screenshots and vague wonder of what could be, so the game would be as much of a surprise as possible. This was one of my first eBay purchases in a while where I felt like childhood me after ordering a stuffed animal on Pokemon Channel. And let me tell you, this instantly clicked. The controls are buttery smooth, and that combined with the track layouts make it easy to have fun with in the beginning but still hard to master. The game's aesthetic is aged perfectly too. The colors just pop out so nicely, like on Out of the Blue with its nice purple hue, or the billboards and lighting on Edge of the Earth. All of this combined with one of the best soundtracks ever made makes this one of the coolest games ever created. I seriously cannot stress enough how cool it feels to nail turns and just go as fast as possible in this game. And this had me playing the tracks over and over again in the time trials to be as smooth as possible. I'm not even that great at it yet, but mark my words, I will be cracked at this game one day.
Now R4 is an all-time classic that everybody loves, but this was around the point where I'm like, instead of continuing to play classic racing games I've never played before, what if I play racing games that I haven't even thought about in 12 years and played as a kid? And that's why I'm holding a copy of Ford Racing 3 right now.
Of all the games I'll talk about in this video, Ford Racing 3 was probably the most likely to have been from the bargain bin, because it certainly wasn't out of my childhood enthusiasm for the Ford brand. And let me tell you, I treated this game as such. This was the top one game to not get put back into its case when I was done with it, because my old copy doesn't even work. On top of this, I went to a flea market and tried to find a copy there, and every copy I found was super scratched up, so this must have been a common thing. Is there a single self-respecting individual on this earth that had the wisdom to take care of their copy of Ford Racing 3?
Well, apparently there is, because I found a copy on eBay.
Now, how is Ford Racing 3, you might ask? Look, a lot of people will tell you to never meet your heroes, but what I'd tell you is never play Ford Racing 3 for the first time in 16 years. I'm not saying the game is awful, it looks nice and controls well enough, but the rose-tinted glasses are gone. The tracks are not that memorable and there aren't many of them. The rubber banding is awful, and each race feels like it's one lap too long. Seriously, each lap would take like 2 minutes, and the races were 3 laps, so sometimes it was just a drag. This game did serve its purpose back in the day though. I've got so many vague memories of doing time trials in my truck and just thinking about how cool it was that I could drive in a video game the whole time. I'd think things like, Wow, I must be so good at this track because I've practiced it so much even though I sucked. But the game really didn't need to be anything special because all I needed were semi-cool looking cars driving around a nice looking track and AI generated rock music. So despite the fact that it doesn't really hold up, I still look back at it fondly. And I'll give this game another thing. It might have planted a little Ford parasite in the back of my brain without me knowing. I give it credit for possibly my favorite dream from my Dream Diary video, the ultra perfect Ford F-150 that my dad was telling me about. Directly quoting from the journal, I remind him that the Ford F-150 has the most size and could drive over every other truck with ease, and he agrees. And look, I'm no Ford guy and I've never owned a Ford car or truck, but I will admit that my dad kinda had a good point in that dream. The Ford F-150 is a sleek looking truck, and it has a really good combination of features, such as a powerful engine, best-in-class towing, and smart technology. This doesn't even begin to touch on the Ford F-150's performance, durability, and compatibility. Surely there's a Ford F-150 model
that will cater to your needs and make you say, built Ford tough. Maybe I went a little overboard, you can't even really see the socks.
Now, as much as I'd love to stay in the Ford spirit for the rest of the video, there's more out there in terms of racing games that will really push me to my extremes with an X.
And what I'm looking for is in Moto 2. And to clear it up, mainly what I'm looking for is bumping into walls.
As a kid, I remember being entranced by this game's attitude, rock music, and Mountain Dew advertisements. Truly the perfect marketing scheme to put even the strongest of 5-year-olds at Toys R Us under a Mountain Dew spell. Why would I pick up Gran Turismo when I could buy a game with a Mountain Dew bike that hates my existence? And that's exactly what fate decided because it ended up in my hands. I remember having fun with this one, but don't remember getting super far into it for whatever reason. But that happened with most games back then, and surely I've grown as a person and can make it further than I did then. Okay, so I started out a bit rough. When I said this game hates you, I was only half joking. Before each level, you're greeted with a description of the torture you're about to be put through. Like the second level, which is set on an erupting volcano. If suicide tracks can be easy, this is the easiest. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security though. Otherwise, you'll find yourself in a lava flow you can't get out of. Or the third track that they describe better than I could ever.
There's been a major earthquake! Half the West Coast is now underwater!
And you're expected to race through it. Masochists rejoice.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
It was a struggle, but I made it through the first 3 levels. The tracks are as psychotic as described, and even when I won, I was constantly bumping into walls and seeing my character get launched 30 feet in the air. But there was a lot of potential here. The racing was fast-paced, the game was really colorful, and the track settings are super cool. I love the idea of the tracks just being in insane disaster areas that only the Joker's second cousin, who is sponsored by Mountain Dew, would want to race in. And the sound effects are incredibly funny, so even when I'm messing up or the stage is a bit cheap, it's making me laugh. And the AI physically couldn't handle the third track. So how hard could this game be after a bit of practice? This is when I was hit with reality. The problem after the first 3 races was that after unlocking new tracks, instead of there being a separate cup for them, I have to do the races I've already done, plus the newly unlocked tracks in one go and on a harder difficulty. This difficulty shift made a difference immediately, and the races I was winning easily were now a struggle again. Everybody just seemed faster than me, so little Dave just wasn't gonna cut it anymore. I had to up the ante and switch to somebody like Gadget. He surely has the speed I need to succeed in the Moto universe. And hey, things were going immediately better. 5th place on the first track.
I mean, it's not last.
My strategy ended up being to tough out the early struggles and see what these next 3 tracks have to offer. And that's exactly what I did. I got to this ice track, and even though it had some jumps where you just immediately die if you mess up, and some areas where the track would just kinda lead you off a cliff on purpose, I got 3rd place on my first try. I was feeling optimistic at this point. Then came Hot Shot, which I have vague memories of playing as a kid. The geysers used to enamor me. I would just sit there and watch it go off like some sort of tourist attraction. Don't remember making it too far in the racing though, and I could see why. This was a disaster. I had high hopes coming off a 3rd place finish, and they were destroyed. There's a part of this track where I drove off the edge multiple times in a row because the path was super narrow and I keep wanting to go fast around it, but that was just not allowed. And this wasn't the only disaster. I finished 10th while being over 20 seconds behind 9th, and more importantly over 40 seconds behind little Dave. After the surprising success of the last race, this made me feel like a kid that just let his balloon float away into the heavens. But there was still hope inside of me for the next race. After all, this could have just been a fluke poor performance that could be easily fixed with a little practice. I looked to redeem myself on the shaft, and well, Just have a look for yourself.
I think that was the worst I've ever done at anything in my entire life.
I'm going to upload this whole race as a separate video just so you can witness how bad this was in its entirety, because that small montage doesn't do it justice. I couldn't tell what was the ground or a pit because of the reflections. The bridges were super narrow, and don't get me started on whatever this was. Just horrible. I can't lie, I was laughing the whole time though. With the constant crashing sounds and screams of my guy flying away, I was a chuckly little guy. After this, I had a brilliant idea of where to take this video. I was like, I'm going to grind this game super hard and just be insane at it for no reason, and completely redeem myself from this low point. This motivation lasted for all but 10 minutes, and ended when I decided to look up the last level to see what I was getting myself into. And nope, there was no shot I was taking the time to learn all of this. I am content with the experience I've had with this game. I did have fun during my time with it, but it takes the whole making levels as extreme as possible idea way too far, to the point where it turns into torture, and I don't think it's worth it for me to spend the time learning it all. And honestly, I've had enough natural disasters and mine shafts for the day, and I want to end with something a little more straightforward. Just me and a car on a road, no bullshit.
And that's why I'm playing Test Drive 5, the only game that fits this criteria.
This game had genius level marketing right off the bat, due to it allegedly being the 5th game in the Test Drive series. In my mind as a kid, I was like, 5? I can't even count that high. I also say allegedly because I really don't know if I believe that 4 other Test Drive games came out before it. And I'll never know for sure because I'm never looking it up purposely, so that the mystery and wonder still remain. And look, the only memories of this one for me are driving around randomly and acting like I was driving around an actual city. If that tells you anything, I didn't get very far. And I'm not going to make the same joke as with Jet Moto 2 and act like I'll do any better this time around, because I'll let you know right off the bat, I won't. This game is almost as hard as Jet Moto 2. There aren't any natural disasters, but there are a lot of cars on the road to collide with. And a good chunk of them are just sitting there waiting for you to hit them, and whoever was in them will die. Yes, that's right, it's a racing game where there are cars still on the road going 65 miles an hour while you're going 165 miles an hour, and they appear with PS1 draw distance. It seems pretty ambitious for a PS1 bargain bin game, but it's just a recipe for destruction and waiting for your car to start back up. On top of this, there are speed traps. If you drive by a cop, they will start chasing you, and not the AI who also drove past them. And they are fast. I had trouble getting away from them with all the other cars on the road, and would resort to trying to slam them against the side of the road. When they inevitably catch you, you get stopped for a bit, and then they piece out of existence and you can do whatever you want with what's left of them. Their duty is finished and they must go beyond this realm. Because of all this, I never finished in the top 3 of a single race. But due to how funny the car accidents are, I can never really get mad at constantly running into screaming metal death trap obstacles, and I had a lot of fun with this. I completely get why I played this game so much as a kid. I probably just messed around and ran into the cars the whole time. Yeah, that's all I needed to entertain my feeble child brain.
It's all I need to entertain my feeble adult brain, too.
You could just send cars flying in the most ridiculous ways and it didn't get old. I eventually got to the point where the strategy became go slow and don't run into stuff while the AI constantly runs into stuff and gets stuck. One time they even got permanently stuck and I went back to find them but couldn't because they just disappeared forever. And despite the AI being bad, this strategy netted me a solid 4th place. I just couldn't figure this game out, and eventually just enjoyed all the crazy collisions. And I feel like it embodies my experience with racing games as a kid. These were not the best games, but that was okay because I'd make my own fun in them. I'd just drive around and make up my own things to do and it was a great time. And because of that, I'll always cherish these games. Even Ford Racing 3.
Well guys, I had a fun time playing these games and reminiscing on much speedier times, but I can feel that the green juice has reached my central nervous system, and I fear that my time on this earth might be running out. I can only hope that I'm reborn as some sort of dolphin so that I can feel freedom once again. Who the hell is this guy?